about what we do about the state of reality. So I'm not political, I'm not here to own the libs, I'm not here to get certain candidates elected into office. I just want to make factual claims about biology, and then we can all hopefully have productive conversations. So that's what I'm going to do, at least I'm going to try to. So some of the biggest pseudoscience out there is this notion that sex is a spectrum, and I'm going to go through a couple myths about the biology of sex to sort of debunk this myth, and I hope we'll have a good understanding of what it means to be male and female by the end of this and why that's important. So I have to give a little primer on sexual reproduction here. So sexual reproduction is a type of reproduction that involves a complex life cycle in which gametes, such as sperm or egg cells, with a single set of chromosomes combines with another to produce a zygote that develops into an organism composed of cells with two full sets of chromosomes. How this kind of looks, you have ovaries in females, testes in males. Those produce eggs and sperm respectively. During mating, those create a zygote. That continues to develop and differentiate until you get a full-fledged new organism at the very end of this. This adolescent organism will then mature into an adult, and then it'll be either male or female, and it'll complete that life cycle over and over again. So this has been happening for billions of years. Nothing's changed in the last couple of years that hasn't validated this as much as people would like to believe. So, what are males and females? It's really mind-boggling. This is a question that we're asking in society nowadays, because I think it's pretty fairly obvious. Common sense will take you most of the way there in understanding what a male and female is. But there's some nuance about the scientific definition of what this is. It has something to do with eggs and sperm. So broadly speaking, males are the sex that produce small gametes, or sperm, and females produce large gametes, or ova. This is true across not just humans, but across all mammals, all animals, and even the plant animal kingdoms together. So this is just the fundamental definition of what it means for organisms to be male and female. But people will immediately start objecting. They'll say something like, well, not all individuals produce gametes. Adolescent boys, for instance, they don't produce sperm yet. Postmenopausal women, they're no longer producing ova. Do they cease to become males, or is an adolescent boy not a male until they start going through puberty? Well, when we're actually talking about the sex of an individual, like flesh and blood organism, their sex is defined based on their reproductive anatomy. It's defined by the type of gamete that their anatomy is organized around through development to produce. So you just sort of have to have the reproductive equipment. That's how we sex actual flesh and blood individuals, okay? So, because there is no third or intermediate gamete between eggs and sperm, there's no sperms, there's no spegs, and there's therefore no third type of tissue or anatomy that can develop around to produce it. There are only two sexes in humans, and so because there's only two sexes, sex is binary. That should be the end of the talk. A lot of activists will try to just muddy the waters about those absolutely basic facts of biology. I almost said human biology, but as I said, this extends to the entire plant animal kingdom of what males and females are. So I'm going to debunk a couple of these myths about biological sex that have really spread around a lot. I never thought they'd spread this much, honestly. When I first heard people talking about the sex spectrum and sex being a social construct, it's just completely arbitrary, and we can just redraw the lines whenever we want to. I treated it sort of as the way I was treating like something like flat earthism. It wasn't worth my time addressing, because there's no possibility this is going to start spreading and catch like wildfire through society, because it's just so against common sense. And even more so, everyone knows. Back then there was actually a debate in prehistoric times about whether the Earth was round or flat, and they had to actually do some interesting measurements to discover this. But for biology of sex, it's really pretty straightforward just by looking at people. So the two myths I'm going to be debunking here is, one, that sex is a spectrum. I call this sort of a sex eliminationist argument. It argues that there's no such thing as male or female. There's just sort of varying degrees of maleness and femaleness, and we all just sort of occupy this percentage of being one or the other. And then there's these other arguments that are sex expansionist arguments, that there's more than two sexes, okay? Weirdly, these two camps, even though they're really opposed to one another, you'll see the same person making both of these arguments. I really want to see the debate between those two camps. But for some reason, it's like both of those versus the sexes binary people. Whereas actually I have more in common with like the more than two sex people, because at least we like are willing to define what sexes are. You know, the sex spectrum people, they've just like flown the coop. Their sex isn't even real for them at all. So we'll first address the sex as a spectrum argument.